Now, compliance checks are one of those things that are easy to skip until they're not. Your investment policy statement exists. Your CFO signed it. Someone approved it. But how often does anyone actually check your current positions against it systematically? In most Treasury operations, the honest answer is a lot less often than it should happen. It's not bad intent, it's just how it goes. There's a lot on the plate, a lot of fires to fight. An artifact can change that, so we're going to build a compliance check that runs against our IPS. It's systematic, it's auditable, it's repeatable. Now, what is this check? It checks the investment and debt policy for F9 Finance Coffee Shop. This has 5 core principles. Safety of principal is first. Liquidity is second. Return on investment third. Diversification fourth. Transparency and control fifth. Under safety of principal, there are operational requirements. Accounts must be with FDI-insured institutions. Credit ratings must be investment grade. The CFO must approve any debt, no speculative investments. Beyond the principles, there are the reserve minimums that we covered for the last tool. If an account drops below its minimum, it's a breach of the policy. So now we're going to prompt Claude to check all of this. Role first. You're a Treasury compliance analyst at F9 Finance. And the context. The company's investment and debt policy, version whatever, effective January 1st. Context. The company's investment and debt policy, which will attach. Your job is to check end-of-day positions against policy requirements. The data is going to be the same thing we used in the last section, which is our balances of bank data. And the task here is going to be specific. Check each location's account structure against policy requirements. Flag any account below operational minimums or using improper accounts. Flag any reserve account outside of policy range. Use bank information to verify that all institutions are FDIC insured. Then produce a compliance summary. Now, with this document, format requirements matter. I mean, for all we know, this is a SOX control. A summary block at the top showing the date, overall compliance status, and the count of exceptions. A table with each location and account, the policy requirement, the current balance, and the status. Then a clean exceptions list at the bottom with each breach and the specific policy section it violates. Finally, a reviewer sign-off block. That sign-off block is intentional. The artifact is designed to be signed and filed. It's governance, not just a formality. It shows who reviewed it and when. So we're going to enter the prompt into Claude. The artifact's going to render. With day 1 data, all accounts are above their minimum. All reserves are within policy range. The summary status is compliant. Exceptions count is 0. The exceptions list is empty. And then, of course, the reviewer sign-off block is blank, waiting for someone to PDF this and sign it. And that's what a good output looks like. Clean, clear, no surprises, and all positions within policy. So now back in Claude, we're going to go to the other way to create an artifact. The last time we did it in chat, now we're going to go to the Artifacts tab. We're going to come up here and click New Artifact. And then the great thing here is Claude's going to walk us through step by step. Now, in this case, let's just say we want to start from scratch, and it can kind of prompt us through the process. So here's a blank slate. What would you like to create? I'm going to say I want to create something else. We're going to say we want to create something else, and then we'll go ahead and put our prompt in. You are a Treasury compliance analyst at the F9 Finance Coffee Shop. Your role is to verify that current cash and investment positions comply with the company's investment debt policy that I'm going to give you. I will also attach for you all of the relevant banking and financial information that you need. Your task is to check each location and account against the investment policy requirements. For each account, I need you to state the policy requirement, the current status. If any account is outside policy, flag it as an exception and cite the specific policy section. Produce a formal compliance summary. Now, from a formatting standpoint, I'm looking for a summary block at top, date, overall compliance status, and count of exceptions. I want to have a table with the locations, the account, the policy requirements, and the compliance status. I want to have an exceptions list. If it's empty, it can just be empty. And then I need a reviewer sign-off block with fields for things like reviewed by, title, date, and signature. Now, this artifact needs to be dynamic so we can give it new data day after day, but I want someone to be able to PDF it so that they can sign the document. All right, we've got our prompt ready, followed everything that we said. We'll go ahead and send that away, and we'll let Claude do its magic. All right, Claude's coming back. It's got a couple of questions for us. All right, how do I want to provide the policy and banking data? I'm going to upload a file. And then for the PDF export, what should it print as? It should be print ready, clean document layout. All right, now it wants us to go ahead and upload our files. I intentionally didn't include those, so it would see if it would ask for it, which it did. So we'll go ahead and add our files. Here's going to be our investment policy. Here's going to be our thresholds, and here's going to be our bank data. We'll go ahead and open that up. Once everything is attached, we'll send this one away. So the Claude artifact builder working exactly as it should. So now you see Claude building away. It's decided again to do a dynamic HTML document to give us exactly what we want that will produce and generate for us a clean PDF. It started working on the interactive artifact. You can see all of the great coding happening for us. We don't have to touch a single part of it. As soon as it's done, it's going to come up and it's going to be our well-formatted artifact. And here is our artifact, and this is really cool. So we can select our as of date. We can type in who it's prepared by. We've got our spot for our reviewer name, our reviewer title, our date. We've got a refresh report button, and we can critically print save as PDF. So here's the F9 Finance Coffee Shop. Here's the report. Overall status today is compliant. We have 12 accounts reviewed, no exceptions, 3 institutions. Here's our account level compliance detail. Status is okay of everything. This is the severity. No exceptions today, and then everything is looking really good from an FDIC compliance standpoint. Great credit ratings. Everything is CFO approved. And then down here is the final reviewer sign off and a little footnote saying what the policy is and that it should be retained for audit purposes. Literally exactly what we asked for. How cool is that? So now with all of this, hopefully you're starting to see a pattern. You specify the format, you give Claude the data, you build the logic into the prompt. The artifact renders, it's ready to publish, share, use, update data, whatever you need to do. And one of the most underrated things about artifacts is that you don't have to start over when something's not quite right. You can give Claude a revision instruction and it's going to edit right in place. If you've built a 10-row table and the commentary isn't landing, you don't rebuild the whole table. You fix the commentary, and that's the real efficiency gain. Now, how revision instructions work is simple but powerful. You need to be very targeted, you need to be specific. You need to be clear about what stays and what changes. Here's a bad version. Make it better. Well, that doesn't tell Claude anything. Now, here's a good version. Rewrite the commentary paragraph in past tense analyst language. The table and exception section are correct. Don't change them. That second version has 3 parts, and this is what I want you to pay attention to. State what needs to change, state how to change it, and protect what's working. Every good revision instruction follows that pattern. Now let's look at what that actually sounds like in a Treasury artifact. So here's a revision. The balance in row 4 should be 264,000, not 246,000. Correct it. That's data correction. You caught an error, you fix it. The table structure says one cell changes. Now here's a more complex one. Rewrite the status levels to say above threshold, near threshold, and below threshold instead of green, yellow, and red. Some people just don't like colors. You want different language, same data, same logic, different labels. Here's an even more complex one. I want you to add a recommended action column to the exceptions table with 1-sentence action for each exception. The current columns and data are correct, just add this new column on the right. You're adding structure, you're keeping everything that already works, you're just expanding it. You can even do a language one. I'm noticing the commentary section uses hedging language. Rewrite it to remove any phrases like it appears or seems to indicate. Replace those with direct statements. The table and exceptions are correct. Every one of those is a targeted fix. You tell Claude exactly what to change and what to leave alone. That's how you stay efficient. Now let me show you an example of reiterating on both of our artifacts. So here's our cash position report. And I do like how it gave this chart. This chart is really cool with our 3 locations, but what if we wanted to plan ahead to have multiple locations? I want you to keep the overall structure of the report, the exceptions, the header. The majority of the report is exactly what I want. But on the end of day account balances chart, there's a high probability that we'll be opening more locations in the near future, and I feel like this format only works with 2 or 3 locations. Change the account balance summary to be a drop-down where I can switch between multiple locations. This will allow me to have up to 20, 30, or 40 locations in the future. All right, so there's the prompt. I'm asking for a specific change. What I want to see is that nothing changes except this one section, and I want to see this section change to be dynamic. So we'll send that away, and we'll see how Claude handles it. All right, so Claude's processed our instruction. It says it has what it's need. It's going to replace the balance table section. It's going to give us one location at a time as a dropdown, keep the overall format, and not touch anything else. Now, right before our eyes, everything has updated. Claude has given us a new artifact. So we now have the 3 locations. We can have a drop down here. We can flip between them. Really cool feature we didn't even ask for. It's flagged the location that has the breach so we can look at it, but it's given us multiple options to click between locations. Again, calling our attention to where there's an issue, and then as we asked for, nothing else on here has changed. So that's exactly how you reiterate. Be very specific about what you want changed and what you don't. Now let's go back to our other artifact. This one is on the artifacts tab because that's where we built it from. We'll come to our Treasury compliance report. Now for reiteration here, what I want to show you is we only pulled in 1 day of data. We want to see that it can handle an additional day of data without breaking. So we'll go ahead and add our next day of data. Here's our second day of data. So with our data attached, we're going to give it the prompt, incorporate this new additional data without changing any formatting or functionality. We'll go ahead and send that away. And what we're looking for is for this new data to come in, to have the ability to change between the different days, but we don't have to have anything break or change. All right, and Claude has come back and it's saying it has not made any changes except loading the data, and the as of date is now a dropdown and it's going to let us toggle between our dates. So this is exactly what we saw before. It just added the functionality here to let us pull in the date, and now it's clearly noting the exceptions. There's one thing that requires the CFO review. It's a critical warning. And then the exception is nice and cleanly flagged here, but nothing else changes. And that's exactly how you should be iterating on your artifacts. Now, when should you start fresh instead of iterating? Well, if the complete structure itself is wrong, if it just kind of missed the point, you need to start fresh. You asked for a table and Claude gave you a narrative, or you asked for 3 sections and Claude gave you 1, or the format just isn't right. It's not an iteration, that's a misfire. Write a better prompt and run it again. But if the structure is right and only specific content needs adjustment, well, then you can iterate. The rule of thumb is if more than half the artifact needs to change, it's faster to rebuild. If less than half needs to change, it's a good time to iterate. But here's something important about versioning. Artifacts don't have built-in version history. You can't hit undo and go back to yesterday's version. If you're going to share a version with a stakeholder, download it first, save it somewhere, then keep iterating. Keep a copy of what went out. That's good governance and that's audit ready. Now let's ground this in a real example from the coffee shop. You built the cash position artifact in section 2. You ran it with day 1 data. The output was almost perfect, but the commentary was too chatty. It sounded like a conversational note rather than analyst language. So you gave Claude a revision instruction. Rewrite the commentary in past tense analyst language. Remove any phrases that sound conversational. The table and exceptions are correct. Claude edits the artifact. The commentary shifts from cache as looking good across all 3 locations. This is great because it gives us flexibility to all locations maintain healthy cache policies. No exceptions are flagged. Different tone, same data, same table. You look at the artifact, it's right now, you download it, you send it. Tomorrow, you get day 2 data. You paste it in the same prompt with no changes. A new artifact generates, same format, same structure, same voice, and different data. And that's how you build a process. It's exactly what we saw in our second example. Now with this, you have 2 working artifacts. A daily cache position report that runs every day, a compliance check that verifies positions against policy. Both follow the same discipline. Both are consistent, and both are audit ready. Now there's one more layer to add before we close out Module 3. You've been building these artifacts from scratch each time. Lesson 5 shows you a faster path, skills. These are reusable, downloadable configurations that live in your Customize tab in both Claude Chat and Cowork. You install one and it changes how Claude behaves by default, without you writing the same setup instructions over and over. And that's what we're going to cover next. Now the artifacts in this module were built from scratch each time. You wrote the prompt, specified the format, provided the data. That works, and if that's the only way to do it, it's fine. But there's a faster path once you understand skills. A skill is a reusable configuration or just a set of instructions. It lives in your Customize tab in Claude Chat and in Cowork. You install it once. After that, every time you use Claude, that configuration or set of instructions is already loaded. You don't have to write setup, you don't have to repeat format, you don't remind Claude what a cache position should look like. The skill handles all of that before you type a single word. Now, the difference between a skill and a project is worth being precise about. A project is a workspace. It holds your system prompt, your uploaded files, and your conversation history. Everything in a project is specific to that project. You open the Treasury Policy Assistant project and all the context is there. A skill is broader. A skill applies to Claude across any conversation, not just one project. It's a set of behavior instructions that runs before anything else. Where a project gives Claude information about your specific organization, a skill gives Claude a way of operating. Think of it this way. The project is your Treasury department. The skill is a trained analyst who already knows how to work across the company. Now, we'll find skills in the Customize tab. In Claude Chat, that's under our account settings, and Cowork, it's in the same place. This shows what's already installed and a way to add new ones. Anthropic and third-party developers publish skills you can download and install directly. You can also make your own. Once installed, they're available every time you open Claude. Installing one takes 30 seconds max. You click the skill, you read what it does, you add it. Done. It's not a setting you configure manually. You're not writing XML or editing a configure file. It's the same pattern as installing an app on your phone. Now, what does a Treasury relevant skill actually look like? Well, here's an example worth understanding. A Treasury output formatting skill tells Claude to always produce tabular data in a specific structure. It tells it to always use analyst tone language and commentary, to always flag exceptions before summarizing, and to always cite the data source at the bottom of every output. You don't write any of that into each prompt. The skill establishes it as the default behavior. The result is that every artifact you generate looks like it came from the same analyst, same voice, same structure, same exception logic. You've built consistency into the tool itself, not into the effort of prompting correctly every single time. As I mentioned, you can also build your own skills. This is the part most teams don't get to immediately, but it's worth knowing because it becomes one of the highest leverage things you can do with Claude. Now, you write a skill the same way you would write a system prompt or build an artifact. The difference is that instead of saving it to one project, you save it to your Customize tab where it applies everywhere, or you can even download it and save it on your computer for some of the more advanced features. Now, that's a meaningful distinction. Your team has standards, specific terminology, compliance requirements, even a preference for how exceptions get flagged, a required format for anything that goes to the CFO. Now, if those standards live in a single project system prompt, they only apply to that project. But if they're in a skill, they apply to every conversation, every artifact, every output your team generates. So let's come back to Claude Desktop. We're going to look for the Customize tab, and that's where we're going to find our skills right here under Customize. Now, there's two things under here. There's a place to connect to other applications, like to connect to Google Drive to pull your files, and then there's Create New Skills. As I mentioned, we can download them or we can build them. You'll see some I've got here. I've got one that can do variance commentary just the way people like to read it. I've got my F9 Finance brand voice. I can build PowerPoint templates. I can do financial review decks. Plus, now these four I built myself. Skill Creator is actually a skill from Anthropic. You can see added by Anthropic right here that helps you build other skills. So Anthropic itself will publish ones that can build skills. Now, there's a couple different ways to add them. If I hit the plus button here, I can browse skills to see everything from Anthropic and their partners. So we'll see brand guidelines for marketing. We'll see themes if we want to build some ways to style artifacts, all kinds of cool things there. So that was browsing. Then if we want to create a skill, we can create a new skill with Claude. We can write skill instructions in manually, just like we wrote up a system prompt, or we can upload a skill that either we've built somewhere else or that someone is sharing with us. So lots of different ways to get skills in. You can also do skills just right in line in the regular chat. If you hit create with Claude, it's going to come up, and just like we saw with artifacts, it's going to walk you through it step by step, and you'll see this prompt here for that. Now, once skills are built, you can also call skills in two ways. You can simply say, use this skill, use F9 Finance brand voice, what have you, or you can type a slash, and that's going to give you the ability to pull up all of your different skills just by typing that slash in. And that's a great way we could do the skill creator. Now, this is a skill file. If you were to look at this on the computer in its markup, it's going to be complete gibberish because it's designed for the AI tools to read. There's a much better way to look at what the files actually look like if we go to one of the skills. So let's go to our skill here. Let's say F9 Finance. So let's go to a skill here. This is what it looks like in more plain language. So we've got our who added it, me, when it was updated, how to trigger it, the description, and then the skill itself. Now again, this is the skill in plain language. I can also flip over here to see it in code, and this is what it looks like in Markdown, and of course it was encoded in that other file we look at, so much easier to look at it on here. So now let's go ahead and build skills, and I'm going to show you kind of a neat way to do it once you've gotten a document you really like. Let's come back to our F9 Treasury compliance report. I'm going to call the skill for skill creator, and then I'm going to give this a prompt. So I've done /, I've pulled in skill creator, and then I've said my leadership really liked this format, create a skill that generates this format for any document I apply it to. The only change is I want it to be green colors instead of blue for my brand, F9 Finance. So we'll go ahead and send that away. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at what it built. It's going to take the key pieces of that format and it's going to make them repeatable so I can apply it to any single document I want. Then we're going to have that file that we can save to customize. So then we're going to have a file that we can either save to customize or download and then share with other people on the team so that they can work with it. Now you'll see it writing here. It's creating a skill for Treasury compliance report. Up here, we've got the skill metadata. We've got the purpose. We've got our brand token, so all the colors it should be using, kind of the document sections we'll be looking for. And it's really just cataloging everything about that report that we know that our leadership really liked. And here's our skill. So it's ready to go. It's added for us and we can now call it in any of our chats. Or if we want to download it, we can just come up here, say download as Markdown, and then I can move it between. I can email it around and other people can use it. And if you ever come back and want to change something about your skill, you can simply iterate the exact same way we did with artifacts. Now there's a practical workflow question that comes up when teams start using skills. When do you use a skill versus a project versus a one-off prompt? And the answer is clean. Use a skill for behaviors you want consistent everywhere. Use a project for information and context specific to a single workflow. And use a one-off prompt for tasks that don't repeat. The daily cash position artifact is a repeating task with a fixed format. That's a skill. The Treasury Policy Assistant is a workflow with specific reference documents. That's a project. The one-time question about whether a specific wire needs CFO approval, that's a one-off. Now, most Treasury teams start with projects and they can get a lot of value there. Then from there, they realize that certain behaviors they're manually writing into every prompt could just be a skill. That's when the compounding starts. Skills plus projects plus artifacts, each layer doing a specific job. Skills set the baseline behavior. Projects add workflow context. Artifacts produce the deliverable. Now, some questions that I often get about artifacts and skills. First, can I export the artifact in different formats? And the answer is yes. Most artifacts, of course, depending on how you design them, can be downloaded as docx, PDF, or plain text, depending on the format Claude generated. Simply look for the download button in the artifact panel, and it's going to give you those different options. Now, what if I need to share just the table without the commentary? Well, this is where you can iterate. Give Claude a revision instruction, remove the commentary section, keep the table, header, and exceptions list. Claude will edit it in place, and then you can simply download the revised version. Can I automate this? Do I have to paste new data every day? Well, in the next module, we'll actually cover how to use Cowork to handle repetitive data entry. For now, pasting the day's balances into the prompt is the standard workflow. Can artifacts include formulas or interactivity? Yes, but it depends on the format. An HTML artifact can include buttons and calcs. A Word artifact can't. Stick to formatted documents for most Treasury work. It's simpler, more shareable, and more professional. Now, can you share a skill with your team? Yes, as I've showed you, skills can be exported and shared as downloadable files. If you build a Treasury output format skill, your team can download and install it in their own customized tab, and that's how you standardize outputs across a whole team. If your team's fortunate enough to have a team or enterprise subscription, you can actually just save it to the team or the enterprise, and they can download from there. Will skills conflict with my project system prompt? Generally, no. They usually layer together. The skill provides the baseline behavior, the project adds context. Where they overlap, the project's prompt will typically take precedence. If you notice things conflicting and producing unexpected output, the fix is to check both and make sure they're not giving contradictory rules. Lastly, how many skills can I install at once? Well, there's no hard limit, but be selective. Every installed skill adds instructions. Install skills that apply broadly to your work. Don't install one for every single edge case. If you're adding more than 3 or 4 to any project or chat, you're probably better served by consolidating them into one single skill. And that's the complete picture for Module 3. You built the artifacts, you learned how to iterate on them, you understand the layer that makes those artifacts consistent across your whole operation. Now, Module 4 will shift to something different, research and collaboration. Deep research, co-work, and how to use Claude for the information gathering work that happens before the numbers even exist.